I was actually talking to a friend about toxic productivity earlier, and it's actually an interesting topic, and it actually prompted me to record this since I'd like to share my thoughts on toxic productivity, since self-admittedly I'm very much guilty of it throughout my whole student life, and I'm still guilty of it, but I'm actively working on it. But I have realized a lot of things about toxic productivity and what goes into it, uh, on a bigger picture. So, uh, we romanticize hard work a little too much, in my opinion. Collectively, we romanticize working hard at the expense of everything else in our life. We romanticize the idea of working so much hours that you steal hours away from other aspects of your life, may it be health, may it be relationships, may it be may it be things in your life that isn't necessarily related to your career. And that's basically our idea of being productive, wherein you have to sacrifice things in your life to reach a certain point. You have to sacrifice your health to reach a certain point of quote unquote success in your chosen field. But it actually doesn't have to be that way. And before I could, rationalize why it doesn't have to be that way, let's try to dissect the cause. And I'm not sure what reputable sources say about it, or what psychology has to say about it, or what other people have to say about it. But I do have a bit of an assumption or a guess on why we collectively romanticize hard work. We collectively and subconsciously have this idea of what it means to be a perfect model within that field that you're currently involved in. Doesn't matter what it is. And it doesn't have to be a specific model. And most of the time we don't have an answer on when you're asked what that perfect model is. We just think that there is. And we subconsciously strive to achieve a perfect model that we can't even describe what it might be, or what we should be in terms of what we do on an everyday basis. So if it got a bit confusing, let me use an example, and I'll always use an example near and dear to me, which is medical school. So, as you know, I'm a med student by now, if you've heard the other videos. And I'm not speaking for other people on what I think a perfect model should be, because, like I said, it might be a subconscious thought, and I'm not sure. I'm not 100% sure, but I think it's safe to say that we have this sort of perfect idea. To my fellow med students who are probably listening, if ever, we have this perfect idea of what a med student should be and what a med student should do on an everyday basis, and we can't even say for sure what a perfect med student is. We just guess along the way, and the stimulus of us producing our everyday to-do list is actually directed towards us easing our anxiety, of the prospect of us not getting to fulfill this perfect model, because that's anxiety inducing, that we are not fulfilling to what we think we should be in our chosen field. We make our to-do lists in such a way that we are equating productivity with being occupied. And being busy and productive isn't exactly synonymous. It could be in some cases, but it shouldn't be a general association with each other all the time. Because you could be busy, but your to-do lists to-do lists are filled with stuff that probably doesn't even matter, but they fulfill your need to feel busy. But they don't actually matter in the long run and don't contribute some sort of meaningful progress to your pursuit of whatever field that you might choose, or even if it's not a career wise, may it be something else that you just want to strive for and just get better at. What I'm suggesting here is that it's okay to have priorities, and it's okay to have little priorities as you can have, and you could focus on that during the day instead of focusing on useless things that really don't matter. So let me put it into perspective and see why it's important to me as of the moment. So we only have 24 hours. Let's say you sleep for 6. That's 18 hours. If you compile your downtime, lunchtime, dinner time, breakfast time, your bathroom breaks, your staring at the out of the window moments, rough estimate probably around 3 to 4 hours. So that's 14 hours. 14 hours of potential productive time. That's not a lot of time. That's actually a pretty short time, and maybe there are unforeseen factors that could take away from your time, so that's even less time for you to allot to being quote unquote productive or to use as meaningful time. So you now have the recognition that there isn't much time, so it would be counterintuitive to start filling it with useless stuff just so that you feel like you've done something in that limited time that you have. But we should actually start looking at it some other way. We should recognize that yes, 24 hours isn't really enough for what we want to do, but that's not a bad thing. It's an impetus or a stimulus for us to actually start appreciating doing things that actually matter. So in a practical sense, how do I try to achieve this? Because I'm not saying I perfectly achieve it. I'm still very tempted to put stuff on my to-do list, but it doesn't really matter tomorrow or from a week from now. I have two lists. I have a will-do list and a might-do list. The will-do list is a bunch of non-negotiables that cannot be left undone when the next day comes. May it be some sort of obligation or deadline, responsibility, or maybe it might be self-imposed. And I have the might-do list, and the might-do list are usually the things that I'd put on my list just to so that I'd feel busy. But this time, the might-do list affords me some sort of mental safety net that if I might not be able to complete them, it's okay, because it's not a non-negotiable thing. It can be left for tomorrow to my tomorrow self to handle. So it doesn't feel as bad when I don't get to complete it, because it's a cycle, right? You put a lot of things on your to-do list. You only complete 2 out of, like, let's say 10, and you feel bad about not doing 8. But in reality, those 2 things are only what matter. But the fact that you put 8 more just to make it 10 tasks, it undermines the progress that you've already done for the day, even though those were the only meaningful things that you had to do that day. So if you have a paradigm change and change your mindset into making a strict to-do list based on those 2 out of 10 tasks, you're doing wonders in terms of how you look at task completion. Because my might-do list might be long, but if I don't complete it, it's fine, as long as I've given the enough attention to my will-do list. Because my will-do list probably takes a bit more time, than the other tasks. So now that I've accomplished the things that do matter, I can now choose whether or not I can move on to my might do list, depending if I really, if I, have excess time, etc., or if I have a compelling reason to upgrade it to the will do list, etc. But as far as I'm concerned, as much as possible, I try not to do the might do list. It's just something that I put not for formality, but for me to put into perspective what proportion of the things that I want to do actually do matter. Because I could use that excess time for other things. I could use it to exercise, maybe read a book, maybe spend time with family, which is something I'm working on. And yeah, you could use it for other meaningful aspects of your life as well. So throughout college, I'd actually delve into toxic productivity by thinking that the only way to survive college is to bury yourself with so much work, and that bled into med school. Up until recently, I realized that I shouldn't really make med the sole center of my everyday life. Considering, emphasis on considering that there is a lot more efficient ways to achieve what I would be able to achieve if I just cram so much tasks into one day. If I strive for meaningful progress throughout the day, even if it's just one task, but it's meaningful progress, I'm doing myself a favor, because I'm allowing myself to actually live. I'm allowing myself, or I'm freeing myself from that anxiety that I've always self-imposed on myself, that I have to be this perfect student, I have to be this ideal student that buries his face in so much pages, buries his head in so much information that I'll probably forget in the next week, that I'll probably forget in the next month. The things that I used to beat myself up for not accomplishing in college is something I don't even remember now. I don't even remember the hard things that I used to stress over about in college. But now that I'm in med school, counterintuitively, I've been trying to be more easy with myself, given how hard the field is. But that's just how I want to approach life. You might be tempted to argue, but Deebs, you don't understand. It's determination, it's motivation. Yeah, that's what I said too to myself back in college. But in the end, it didn't matter because I don't remember any of it. What use is your determination and motivation if at the end of the day you're destroying and damaging other aspects of your life along with it? There's no use of you getting a higher grade if you delve into toxic productivity, if you've neglected a lot of the other aspects of your life. It's just simply not worth it, because at the end of the day, does it really matter what result you might get if your effort is not directed towards meaningful progress? Won't it feel much better if you get results based on everyday effort directed towards being meaningful in the first place? It's a bit of a tall order to do, and admittedly, I'm obviously struggling with it. But it's something I do want to work on, and I'm actively working on it, and I'm actually happy with how I've been doing so far. But I am tempted to sometimes put a lot of things on my to-do list, just so that, I could fulfill what it means to be a med student in my head. But I've been happy, attending to other things in my life, and one of them is undoubtedly this channel. It's a passion project, and it was a corny idea at first, but it's something I wouldn't do back in first year med school because I was too busy with trying to see what I could do next. Because that feeling of full accomplishment will never come. You tick off 10 tasks, you will always look for the 11th. You tick off 11 tasks, you will always look for the 12th. There is no satisfying us. So the best we could do is just work for meaningful progress. And I'm not asking you to do the bare minimum. I'm asking you to filter out everything that you need to do so that at the end of the day, you have effectively, emphasis on effectively, you have effectively strived for what matters or what really would matter for that day. So I appreciate you listening to this, and yeah, if I'll talk to you in the next recording.